This is where Wisconsin wakes up. It's Daybreak with Brian Noonan and Jamie Martinson. Here are your hosts, Brian and Jamie.
Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Civic Media Network. It is 6 minutes after 6 right now. My name is Jamie Martinson.
And good morning. I'm Brian Noonan. Glad you're here. If you want to get a hold of us throughout the morning, please do so at 855-75-CIVIC, 855-752-4842. Jamie's here. I'm here. Our intrepid producers are here. Parker is in the Boyquarium, and Frank is in his producer's bunker. We have to keep him underground because, well,
protection.
It's just best.
We got to protect
for everybody. Yeah, well, and protect everyone from him.
That's right.
So that is last night was one of those where I love when the weather people on TV say, "Oh, it's good sleeping weather." For me, any weather is good sleeping weather. But we did leave the lights on, or the lights on, the windows open rather. All the windows were open, and so this morning I am allergy.
I was gonna say I'd be so stuffy. I'd be so stuffy this morning if I tried that. Kudos to you.
It felt so good though for the last because I'm cheap. I was going to say thrifty, but I'm not thrifty. I'm
frugal.
Cheap. And
frugal is the word.
Okay, yeah, that frugal sounds nicer. You're right. Frugal sounds nicer. So I don't turn the air on unless I have to, and I do really like the fresh air coming in. So I'm willing to put up with a little. If you guys are willing to put up with a little stuffy sounding this morning, we had a lovely night. Some crazy news coming in from the Packers. I saw Jamie and Parker sending things back and forth, and then Frank in his caring and empathetic way responding just with support, I think, right? Is that how we describe it?
I would only expect that with a good rivalry with a Bears fan. I would only expect it. But, yeah, if you haven't seen, Josh Jacobs, running back for the Green Bay Packers, arrested yesterday, turned himself in for domestic charges. He's being domestic abuse charges. He's being held in Brown County jail right now, and apparently there's some sort of hearing, according to our sports director, Mike Clemens, at 2 o'clock today. So several charges actually listed for Josh Jacobs as well. So, well, Packers fans, it's going to be a great offseason.
OTA start pretty soon, by the way.
Yay! Yeah. Thank you for that, Parker. Mm-hmm. No, that was...
And according to the NFL, for violations involving any sort of domestic violence, if he's found guilty, first-time violation subjects a violator to a baseline suspension without pay for 6 games. So that's got to be encouraging for the Packers when one of your captains is... This. But what's the... It seems like this is, and maybe it's because we focus on the NFL, it seems like domestic abuse is a huge problem.
In sports especially. I think sports in general,
Guys all jacked up on the juice, and they get...
Is it because it's hard to leave the adrenaline and the aggression from the field behind? Is that what it is? I mean, these charges seem relatively new, though, so it seems like they would have been during the off-season when, you're not...
It happened just 3 days before.
Yeah,
so he turned himself in.
Maybe it was the laser tag that they did during their mini training camps. Boy. Did you see that, Parker?
What?
They did a laser tag at Hudson for like a team bonding. And Josh Jacobs was... I mean, as you would assume, the competitive dude and running back on the field, he was competitive in laser tag, too. That was just a few days ago. Maybe it's all tied together. I don't know. But, I mean, let's be smarter about these things.
Yeah.
His people deny all the allegations, and the Packers are just saying they're going to wait and see what happens. So
this is why you let it play out in a court of law, because you got to get all the evidence that,
Yeah, but it's fun to theorize and make things up and then have to walk it back. Or if you're one of those hot take sports jockeys, you just forget you ever said the first thing. You go, I don't know. I never said that. Parker, you're one of those hot take sports jockeys. Are you going to come out this weekend on your big show and lambast him without any proof yet?
I am going to take a gander and say we're going to go more of the how does this affect the team perspective?
There you go.
If I had to guess.
Wow,
all right.
Rather than
really I like it. It's like measured
that.
response to big news.
I would rather
tell you, Parker, you're never going to make it in the sports world with measured responses, Parker.
Well, God forbid we actually keep our heads on.
You're never going to be the next Stephen A. Smith.
No.
Or,
That's okay. I don't need to be talked about as a candidate for president.
Well, no. I mean, before when he was just a loudmouth sports guy and not some
Isn't he still
wannabe politician.
He's still that, but he thinks he's a wannabe politician. Alicia over on YouTube chat, yes, pointing out that domestic violence is a huge problem all over.
Of course.
People don't see it because victims are afraid to step forward. Absolutely.
And we do pay more attention to
big names,
athletes than we do normal citizens who are
any big name usually gets a little bit more attention. Chad has a question for us in our YouTube chat. Parker, perhaps you can answer this for him. He wants to know how come you people always start a minute late.
You people. What do you mean by you people, Chad? You people. I don't like being lumped into the you people.
We don't.
I think what he's referring to is our street. Like it always shows on Facebook or YouTube that we're scheduled to start, and then we actually start about a minute or so later.
Well, now see.
It's all technology, so we got to give everything a chance to like actually gel together. So
now,
Chad, to be honest, we're lazy. We're giving you the show for free. You know,
true.
A minute here or there. We shave a little minute here. Don't you shave a minute at work? You don't. You work nonstop when you get there. Start right out of the blocks, strong.
Chad, can you imagine what the live stream would be like if you didn't hear my decibel tones telling you good morning? Come on. You can't just start with the rooster right at the top.
Starting cold. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants that.
Wow, you people. All right. Okay.
Thank you, though.
I don't know if I've been one of those you people.
Thank you, though, for the messages and the text. And just a little reminder that if you do want to chime into any part of the conversation this morning, you can do so if you're listening online. But, of course, you can always text us or give us a call to 1-855-752-4842. That's 1-855-75-CIVIC. I don't know. It feels like it's too early. It's too early for numbers, but it's definitely too early to spell. Definitely too early for spelling for the phone number today.
I think somebody from the Brewers was listening to the show yesterday.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, because we talked about it. Parker is well known around Madison for going tarps off. He does it at diners. He does it just walking on the Capitol.
His new thing.
He does it in the studio during breaks. If you're not watching on the stream, you don't get to see the purple nurples coming out when Parker goes tarps off.
Careful, we'll get a whole new audience.
Yeah, listen.
Whoa there.
Parker, I'm giving you an OnlyFans side hustle. So
I could use
we talked about how Parker was at the game and they did tarps off and that there was extra security over the weekend because the Brewers said, it was really crowded and we were trying to keep people out of the sections and that. So yesterday, Parker, tell us your buddy was at the game?
Yeah.
Because you sent us a picture.
Yes. Tell us about this.
A friend of mine was at the game, and he sends me a picture of the video board. And it says, if you want to participate in Tarps Off, and there's an arrow, and it says, go to this section right here.
Can I bring it home even further?
Yeah.
My kid was working, and he actually had to design that.
Oh, really?
Go, Max.
Was on the billboard.
Yeah.
Because he texted me, he's like, you would not believe what I just had to do.
See, and we were talking about how I like it to be the more organic thing. It just happens.
Yeah.
Now it's like, it's staged. It has that stank of corporate on it.
It's kind of weird that we're just going to put all of the people without shirts in one little section.
On purpose. When they did it themselves, it was fine.
Right, but now it's weird on purpose. Like, we're just going to, here's your little shirtless pen. You be over here and don't bother the other fans.
I don't think that space is big enough.
Well, that's what they're hoping.
I mean, yeah. And I also don't think it worked.
Weird on purpose isn't weird. Weird on purpose is manufactured. Weird is weird. And fun is fun. You can't manufacture fun.
No.
How many times have you been to like some kind of team building exercise at one of your jobs? And we're going to have fun. We're going to do this. Oh, God, no. Manufactured fun is the antithesis of fun. And manufactured weird is just mass marketing.
I wonder, besides Parker, if we have any other, any listeners or anybody on the live stream that's actually participated in Tarps Off. Please let us know if you have, because I kind of want to know.
I'll Tarps Off during one segment of the show if you want. It's not going to be pretty, but I will Tarps Off.
During Swiper Stay.
That's how you'll know.
Start waving the shirt around.
Yeah. If I wave it clockwise, we're staying.
Or maybe in just the last couple minutes. Isn't that they do it late in the game? So I'll do it late in the game.
Rally.
That's a good point.
For the rally.
It's for the rally.
For that last segment, and I'm Tops Off. Tarps off, tops off.
I did just check. It did not work yesterday. They did not go where they were told to go.
Well, of course they
still
didn't.
went to the 400 though.
Of
Good.
course they
That
didn't.
is not. Yes, you can't regulate that. And listen, I have nothing but respect for the Brewers organization, but just let it happen, man.
Right.
Just sit back and let it go. It's
People-
not bothering anybody. People find it funny.
Right.
And if I find it funny and I'm one of the crankiest people on this planet, then it's funny.
People
I don't care if you're in shape, you're out of shape, you're young, you're old, you're male, female. Take it. Everybody tarps off if you want to.
I'm completely out of shape, so I think it's even funnier when somebody out of shape does it. Like,
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
so I think it's hilarious. I'm like, yes,
One of-
own that.
One of my TV appearances was a show where I was and I was big back then. Not that I'm not big now, but I was probably 100 pounds heavier. I was a fan in the stands at Fenway Park, and I had to rip off my shirt. So on, television, fat TV guy with no shirt, always funny. That's like a classic funny bit. So yes, I agree with you, JB. Fat guys without their shirts, ironically, can be funny. If you're
Right.
But I also like when the fat guys think they're sexy and they're out there with their shirts
I
off.
love
Hey, man.
anybody who owns it. If you can own it and you have that much self-confidence, I'm always for it. Roger is chiming in over on our Facebook chat this morning. Frank, this is probably targeted at you. He says, if the Pirates beat the Cubbies again today, the Cubs fall into last place. That's definitely targeted. Thank you. Wow. Nicely done, Parker.
Parker was waiting for a Cubs slam.
I was. Too bad,
I heard
Frank.
an interesting stat last night. Up until last night, only one team in baseball had not only a 10-game winning streak, but a 10-game losing streak in the same season. The Cubs have now become the second team to have.
Dang.
Is this why Frank stays off camera? Because right now he's fuming because we're talking about the Cubs and here he comes.
Here he comes.
He's going to file something with
I have
HR.
nothing to say.
Hostile work environment. But yet he still reps the team. I
He
like that.
does.
Still got your hat
There's
on.
still some Cubs
Yeah, because
pride.
that was the hat down here.
Wow. All right, Snippy McGee.
Wow.
Let's slow our roll a little
guy.
bit. Maybe go tarps off. Bring your team a little.
I will not be going tarps off.
All right.
It might make you
I
feel
can
better at a
promise you
Cubs
that.
game.
I don't think it will. I don't think it will.
I think a lobotomy will make you feel better at the Cubs game.
Yeah, maybe.
When the Pirates own you.
My lobotomy was when I was a child and forced to root for this team year in and year out.
I got you.
You're a willful adult now. You could change your mind.
That's
No,
not
it's too
happening.
ingrained.
I know.
No,
It
Once
never
it's in your
happens.
DNA,
I
you
know.
can't,
too much of a
uh,
sicko.
I know.
Yeah.
Well,
is a
but
sicko.
this is what you get. Repping the
Now,
Cubs
Frank,
hat,
is it
complaining.
one of those things that you're so masochistic now you're just like, let them lose it out. Let them lose out the string.
No, I'm not
Another
there
100
yet.
games.
We're still in May.
All right. Look at
All
you
right.
being hopeful. I love it.
We'll bounce back a little bit.
There we go. When we come back, should all federal employees be required to sign NDAs? We'll get to that and so much more. It is Daybreak. I'm Brian Noonan. She's Jamie Martinson. This is the Civic Media Network.
All facts, no fiction. It's Daybreak with Brian and Jamie.
6:22 right now. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We hope you are having a great day, or at least a great start to the day, because it is a little early yet. My name is Jamie Martinson.
And good morning. I'm Brian Noonan. Should all federal employees be required to sign NDAs? Let us know your thoughts at 855-75-CIVIC, 855-752-4842. I've never had to sign an NDA or a non-compete or anything. People figure if anybody else wants to pick me up, go ahead and let them. They don't care.
We have
We're not too worried about it.
occasionally sign NDAs when we deal through the weather company, when we deal with other media companies. We have
Sure,
to
well, that
occasionally
makes
sign
sense.
NDAs, especially if we're having higher level conversations about, merging products or them using our streams, whatever it might be. So occasionally, for those reasons, we have to sign NDAs, but not for the reason we're about to talk about.
Well, no, the the government, the Trump administration, anytime anything bad gets out about them, it's because of a leak. There's leakers everywhere. The whole thing. It's like a sieve, the government. Every piece of confidential information is getting out. And so the president has decided he wants everybody in the federal government, every federal employee, to sign non-disclosure agreements because he says that will curtail federal workers sharing confidential government information and stop the internal leaks to media organizations. Because if we have everybody with an NDA and they're afraid that we're going to sue them, then all of my dark deeds will be hidden. Nothing will come to light. First of all, stop. There's, obviously people with top secret government clearance, they already have all those protections in place. You're not going to get a leak from one of those, people, whether it's a military leader, CIA, a cabinet member. They're not going to be letting anything know. You're never going to stop information from getting out because, quite frankly, if you do something so egregious that somebody wants to leak that to the media, they don't care if you sue them or not.
Right. I mean,
so this is just ridiculous.
It is just another way for this administration to assert what they see as their authority and to basically take control and then eventually rid this government of any sort of career federal employee, right? Because it all goes back to them wanting their people in place within the government. And by the way,
blind loyalty, no dissent, no questioning. It's basically drones. They want just complete, like you said, control over every aspect of everything.
And by the way, in the state of Wisconsin, how would you feel about this? Because there are 29,000 residents who work in federal civilian jobs just in Wisconsin. So think about that. I mean, those are everything from your scientists to your vet services, accountants, healthcare workers, janitors who do the cleanup. Do we really need all of those people signing NDAs just so the president of the United States feels more secure in his position?
I think we want everyone from the lowest level federal employee all the way up.
It's mind-boggling because federal workers are supposed to serve the Constitution. They're supposed to serve the public, depending on what their role is. They aren't beholden to a single political person, administration. That's not what their job is.
So naive,
I know,
Jamie.
I know.
Why do you?
Why do I?
They're here
state
to
the
serve.
facts?
They're here to serve one man and his whims. That's why we have to have these non-disclosures. So there's been a number of different cases that this stems from, and you've heard them all. You've heard him complain about leaks. The New York Times gets a story about something, or there's something that's leaked about Pete Hegseth mandating that Pentagon officials sign NDAs, that whole thing, and we saw all those journalists decide to quit. And it's basically like those weirdo purity pledges. You're pledging to be pure to this administration and not do anything untoward or dirty.
Which makes it just seem even weirder that this
is
a thing.
The whole thing is weird. That's my job. Make it seem weirder.
Putting it those types of terms, it does make it seem weirder. But I mean, when you think about what federal employees do, right? They're helping process benefits. They're basically delivering mail. They're overseeing our ag programs. They're managing public health services. They're supporting local communities across the state. So if those people start feeling pressured to show loyalty to a political administration rather than operate independently, all you're going to do is erode public trust, even more so than you already have, which I understand is probably the intention.
It's even possible, yeah.
I mean, that's most likely the intention. But I think if you're concerned about, the government being basically this its whole other entity, which is what Republicans used to be concerned about, right? Not blurring the line between federal and employees and the administration and the state and all of it. This seems like a new step in not the direction you would want it to go if you believe in the old traditions of what government used to be, or if you believe what the Republicans used to believe.
And I'll go back to my original point. Somebody who wants to do this is going to do it. Now, I don't think the part of this movement is because of somebody leaking names of ICE agents. Now, I don't think we need to, that's be above and beyond. But you're not going to tell me that this person who leaked those names wouldn't have done it if they had an NDA in place. If you feel that strongly, whether in my opinion it's wrong like this leak was, or right where you're talking about, something that affects all of us, or something very, very egregious and not targeting individual people, you're going to do it. And it's not going to matter. Let the lawsuit come. I don't care.
Well, not to mention the fact that if you really look at the details of the proposed draft, it's pretty broad. It's so broad to the fact that it really doesn't define anything, and it would make it very hard to enforce at some point, because it's defined as, quote, an internal agency operations, personnel matters, procurement processes, or any sensitive pre-decisional or deliberative material that is not currently publicly available. Okay.
Just
that's everything.
do it all. Sue for everything. On the other side of the news, what's your biggest concern about data centers? We'll get into it. It's Daybreak, and this is the Civic Media Network.
From Lake Superior to Lake Michigan, this is Wisconsin's Morning Conversation. Daybreak with Brian and Jamie.
It's 6:35 right now. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. I do want to promo something here quickly, because next week, Brian, we need people to be paying attention. Download the Civic Media app if you don't have it, because starting on June 1st, it's another multi-state text-to-win contest.
Is it really?
It is. It's called the Accelerate Your Summer Multi-State Text-to-Win Contest. Daily prizes of $100. You can also win a Wisconsin Dells prize package, and then enter yourself into our grand prize drawing, which is $250 in gas plus another $250 in groceries, which everybody can use right now. So, words of the hour starting on June 1st. Going to run that for 2 weeks, weekdays here on the Civic Media Network. So it should be good
that's
stuff.
how we know that you're management, because we have a meeting about that on Thursday.
We do.
For the rest of us, for the plebes. But the suits, Parker, this is a very, very crucial message. JV started plugging this. I'm like, wait, we're not supposed to know about this yet. We have a meeting on
we
Thursday.
can tease about it. It starts on June 1st.
Listen, you can do what you want. I start flapping my soup coolers about some contest that's coming up that nobody's given clearance.
Things are scheduling. I had it sitting here in front of me, and I was like, well, if I've got it sitting here in front of me, we might as well get people all ready to win some stuff.
That's fine. I'm just like, wow, somebody's got insider. Too bad you can't use that to make money like the administration.
Oh,
your inside information.
I'm not that good. We're just gonna give away money. I'm not gonna actually make my own on this one.
You're doing it backwards.
I know.
Yeah.
I didn't plan very well for this one.
You're doing it wrong.
Should be a good time though. So be listening. Starting on Monday.
Yeah, that's always good. $100 a day and a big Dell's prize package, and
some more cash.
Yes. So make sure you have the app. But if you don't have the app by now, what are you doing? Seriously. You got your Chipotle app. You got all the other apps. Put Civic Media's app on there.
That's right.
And just listen wherever you go.
That's right.
Because then you'll hear more news about data centers.
That's right.
Oh, my God. The bane of our existence, these data centers.
Everywhere. It's not just
everywhere.
here either. In Wisconsin, no. It is literally everywhere. And every state at some juncture right now is fighting data centers and them coming into certain communities. And this is just another example of it here in Wisconsin.
So what's your biggest concern about data centers? 855-75-CIVIC, 855-752-4842. Because, Microsoft they're going crazy with these data centers. They've got a whole network of them. But they're saying, hey, listen, just because we have them all over the Great Lakes region, that won't trigger any review under the Great Lakes Compact, the agreement that protects the Great Lakes water resources, because for the moment, people complain about two things, right, when it comes to data centers. It's water usage and it's utility costs. Those are the biggest things. And in Wisconsin, the water usage is crazy, because for this Mount Pleasant facility, they're projected to average about 15,000 gallons of water a day, usage reaching about 468,000 gallons daily during the hottest period. Now, under the Great Lakes Compact, Projects that use more than 5 million gallons of water daily over a 90-day period trigger additional review by the Great Lakes states and Canadian provinces. Now Microsoft will argue, listen, we're using closed circuit or closed
loop.
Closed circuit.
Yeah.
The closed loop.
Yeah.
They just keep recycling the water. That's you know what I'm trying to say. They're trying to they say we're not using all new water. We're using old water. You don't need that water. We already use it. We're recycling it. We just keep the whole thing going around.
Yeah.
But boy, that the water usage. I mean, it would be a tie for me if they were trying to open a data center in my community. I'd go, well, one, I don't want all the water used up, and two, I don't want to pay a lot more in electricity.
Yeah. And unfortunately, both of those things are happening. There is more water usage no matter what these companies say, and there is more electricity because according to projections that were previously released by the city of Racine, the Mount Pleasant data center from Microsoft could use up to 8.4 million gallons of water annually at full build out. 8.4 million gallons of water every single year. And what I also
seems excessive.
What I also find fascinating is there's been a lot of researchers, especially here in the state of Wisconsin in Milwaukee, who have kind of gone into the environmental impact and put together a lot of research. Federal estimates show that U.S. data centers directly use about 17 billion gallons of water in 2023 for cooling systems. Researchers say indirect water use tied to electricity generation is a lot larger, about 211 billion gallons across the country. So if these companies are going to try to come into these communities and say, oh, no, that's not what's actually happening, you're lying to us. It is. And that's why these communities are fighting back against these data centers so hard, because it's not only the water usage, which then gets, tacked onto the bill of every resident in that town, but then it's also as you alluded to, Brian, the electricity costs that also go up because these data centers are basically sucking it all throughout for their systems.
And according to a recent Marquette poll, that's what most people are worried about. 70% of the people in the latest poll here in Wisconsin said that they believe the costs of these data centers outweigh the benefits, and water was the biggest concern because environmentalists are saying, listen, we keep using all this water. We're gonna strain the resources. We're gonna run out someday.
Turns out that you just don't continue to make water, right? Like you just don't get to continue to make water when lakes or ponds dry up. When those things dry up, though, I mean, like we live in a state that is very lake friendly, and we have a lot of freshwater resources. But it turns out that it's not one of those that just continually just rebuilds, especially if you have droughts, if you have communities that depend on the water, and the data centers are using so much of that right now. And I mean, let's be clear too. We're told that when these data centers come in, they're going to bring so much to the community. Are they really? I mean, they are for a short term as far as jobs go.
Great construction jobs.
Yep. Yes.
Great construction jobs and all the things that lead up to it. So that's terrific. But then it's over, and then you don't need that many people to work to run the data center. We already have 53 in Wisconsin at this point, and there's a part of me that wants to. I know you can't stop progress, and I know AI and all the other things that we need to store all this data for needs to be stored somewhere. But it's like, but we slow this down a little bit because, and this is the argument that a lot of communities are making. I'm not breaking any new ground here by saying that we need to wait a little bit, hold on, see what the actual effects of these things are a little bit down the road, instead of just throwing up as many as we can because we're told that's what we need. Most of us understand to a certain point what these data centers are for and why we need these data centers. But it's easy for Microsoft or whoever else is opening all of these and building all of these to tell us we need that. You need them. You need them. But do we? And what are the actual things? And we've already seen in Microsoft's case, we were talking about NDAs for the federal government. They were working with a lot of NDAs with some of these communities. Well, that's all done now, supposedly.
Well, that's what we're told.
But do we need all of them, and what's the effect? And how about a little moratorium? Some of these communities, and I know citizens are fighting back, so hopefully we can just pause it a little bit.
What I think is interesting is in the last few months, there's been moratorium laws that have gone to vote, and there's been several states that have voted to say, no, we're not saying no fully, but let's make sure we have more regulation. I think what's fascinating is there's been governors on both sides of the political aisle who have overwritten the voters' will to say, I don't think we can do that. I think we need these data centers, which also tells me that there's a lot of promises for how those states are going to be funded from places like Oracle or Microsoft or whatever company is coming into your state. Because obviously, if they're trying to overwrite voter will and what voters are saying they would like, there's obviously a lot of money being exchanged somewhere, right? And we've seen this we've seen this in Wisconsin. These companies come in and they literally make shell companies so that citizens in these towns have no idea that what's actually coming into the community is another data center. It all goes back to the transparency of it all. They don't want you to know what this actually is, what it's all going to entail, and they certainly don't want you showing up at your city council meeting to fight this because they want to be able to do what they want to do because they have their plan in mind, right? It's like basically taking the will right out of the voters and making sure they have no idea what's happening. It's a shame, really.
And we don't. I don't. This is where there's a little willful ignorance. I think is okay. We don't need to know everything, but when it comes to our water, when it comes to what we're going to pay, when it comes to our community, the impact just on our community from traffic to the environment to everything, we don't know yet.
Right.
And what are we allowing ourselves to become?
Right.
If we're just going to be a farm for information.
Right.
Then where do you and I come in? Where do the people come in? And I don't mean that to sound apocalyptic or science fiction-y, but look at the road we're on. Mm-hmm. Well, we got robots dancing in Japan. We've got AI taking over everything. I still like this data center. We talked about this a few weeks ago. The floating data centers.
Yes.
Now, and it's powered by the ocean. It's powered by the waves. So, you could argue, well, that's just taking up room in the ocean like we are on land. True. So what's the answer? If we don't want to be affected here at home, which makes sense, we're going to argue against the ones in the water because that's, the companies will argue against those because it's a little more expensive.
Right. But
in the end, it's not because they're powered with something that's already there and flopping around. You don't have to worry about it. So where do we go? We're not going to stop. We can't stop this. So it's a question I think about a lot. Like, how far down the road are we going to go before things actually level off?
I'm never afraid of basically technology. I'm truly not afraid of technology. I'm not afraid of advancements in technology. What I'm afraid of is how that technology is being utilized, whose hands that it essentially falls in, what it's being used for, how it impacts humans, and also how the impacts it has on the environment. I mean, we're kind of at a point as far as the environment, especially where not everything is just renewable. Right? It's truly not. And that terrifies me because then that directly impacts humans as well in multiple ways. The technology part of it doesn't scare me. It's what we're using it for and who's involved and what the motives are, right? That's what
the technology
terrifies me.
Truly is just a tool. You can build all kinds of tools. It's how you use them. It's where they're used. It's the fact that, unfortunately, your point about resources not being renewable anymore and climate and how all this affects the planet, that's just poo-pooed by so many people.
I know.
And that's the the really dangerous part too.
Yeah.
All right. Good news if you're a hunter, bad news if you're an elk here in Wisconsin. We will talk about all of that. Well, listen, you can't argue the point.
You cannot.
We'll get into it more. This is Daybreak on the Civic Media Network.
Local news, community stories, and the conversations that matter most. Now, more Daybreak with Brian and Jamie.
6:52 right now. Thank you so much for joining us this morning on the Civic Media Network. My name is Jamie Martinson.
Good morning. I'm Brian Noonan. Glad you're here. 855-75-CIVIC is how you get a hold of us. 855-752-4842. Are you an elk hunter here in Wisconsin? Because this story, I don't hunt. I have nothing against hunters. I didn't grow up hunting. I don't know. I've seen elk in the wild. When we were in Colorado in Estes Park, they pretty much take over the town. Yeah. We were caught in an elk traffic jam. That is not an exaggeration. All of a sudden, this herd of elk decides to just
come down from the mountains. Yeah.
And they're leisurely.
They're not in a hurry. They're not like deer.
Not in a hurry. They don't care.
Deer run quickly,
no, elk amble.
Right? Yeah, they just amble, and they don't move quickly, and they don't really care if you're sitting on the road or not. They're going to take their time, and they're going to cross when they're ready. That's
and then they just wander into town.
Yes,
like we were on the main street there in Estes Park, walking around shopping, and here's just elk just walking down the street.
Yeah,
like, hey, what's up?
That checks.
But here, because in Wisconsin, the elk population is growing and growing, so the DNR is going to offer more kill tags than ever for this elk hunting season. Are you a hunter, Parker?
I'm not. No, I have not done the hunting.
I didn't think he was.
No. Yeah, I'm a city boy. Let's be honest.
It was either going to be he wasn't a hunter or he does, but he does it barehanded. Like he goes tarps off in the woods and he wrestles. Yeah, there's no in between.
That makes
okay. Do I at least get like a knife or something?
Listen, I don't know. I see Parker as a primal being.
I don't know, do I? That's what I'm asking.
No, I see you wrestling them down, and then like an aggressive dog, you just clamp down on their throat with your jowl.
Oh, I don't like that.
All right, well then, maybe not.
He's definitely not a hunter. Okay.
No. All right, we got it. So for the second time, these new kill tags are going to include antlerless elk or cows in the central herd in an effort to slow the population growth in the area, and that's what I think a lot of people who don't who are against hunting, where they're just hunting is bad. They forget about these population explosions, and that's why I love talking to people with the DNR because they can explain, yes, we are hunting elk, and the people who hunt, I know they use the elk meat for all sorts of things. But it's also, if you don't hunt some of these species, they get overpopulated.
Right.
They do damage not only to property, but to themselves. The herd gets weaker because the animals are sicker. And so you got to...
Just like talking about the data centers just a few minutes ago, it's like it's maintaining the ecosystem of the state, right? That's essentially what DNR is trying to do with some of these regulations when they say the overpopulation, so we need you to hunt a little bit more. They're essentially handling the state ecosystem to make sure that everything is evened out. Science is cool. Let's just put it like that.
Science is cool, and the way they track how the growth in the population. You're from South Dakota. You probably killed yourself some species in your time.
we have. We've talked right on this show about road hunting for pheasants, which, by the way, is still legal.
Oh, I forgot about the road hunting. That was
So no.
Now you can't hunt elk like that, can you? You can't just zip along the highway and start blasting. Okay.
South Dakota is interesting though because there is a deer hunting season, but it's interesting because it has to mostly be West River because there's more trees. There's there's more habitat for deer. I mean, the eastern side of the state obviously has a population, but a majority of hunters, if you are going to do deer hunting, elk hunting out in the Black Hills, I don't know what the population is like out there now. At one point, they had a big elk population. So if you're going to do anything like that, most people in South Dakota are going to travel to West River, though. It's just it's a completely different. Once you cross the James River, the total environment of South Dakota changes. The landscape completely changes. That's a very interesting state.
Well, that's Illinois is the same way. Once you cross a certain point, about 2/3 of the way down, it turns into this hilly, green, lake-filled area. And you're like, wait, is this the same state? First time I took my wife down there, she's like, are we still in Illinois? Yeah, we're still in Illinois. Yeah, I know you were sleeping, but you didn't sleep that long. It's a long state. We got a long way to go. So I don't understand most of this. I just know it's important.
Yeah.
People who hunt love to hunt, and they've hunted for generations.
Yep.
People were raised hunting. And so there's a couple new regulations for this elk hunt for this year. Smaller hunting units in each zone, which I know there's different zones in the state. And a continuous hunting season for state licensed hunters from October 17th to December 13th. And then the tribal season for hunting usually ends in early January.
Okay.
So there were an estimated 573 elk in 2025, which to me doesn't sound like a lot.
No.
For the entire state of Wisconsin. That doesn't seem like a lot, but I'm not with the DNR, so what do I know? That was last year. It's the highest on record. It was 544 the year before and 510 in 2023. So again, okay, in 2 years you went up 63 elk. Again, this is a huge state.
It is.
It doesn't seem like, but again, I'm not a scientist, so I trust their numbers. They're not just going to let people go out willy-nilly harvesting elk.
Right. I mean, the DNR has put some research into this. They know exactly what the state can handle. In keeping with the herd growth, the DNR is going to issue 20 harvest tags for the 2026-2027 elk hunting season. That's the highest on record, actually up 17 from the previous season, which if you're a hunter and you're listening to this right now, you're probably getting very, very excited. 8 of those
tags.
Why I
said good news for hunters,
that's right.
Bad news for elk.
8 of the tags, all for bulls, will be in the northern herd, and 12 of them will be in the central herd. I'm waiting to see a moose someday when I go to Ely.
That would
There's
be fun.
spottings. There's spottings. I see them on the neighborhood chats and groups. I've never seen one yet. I want to see a moose.
They're not friendly. It's not like Bullwinkle.
Well, I'm not getting close. I just want to see one in the wild.
Ditto. That would be fun. All right. Well, listen, hour 2 on the way. We got some stuff you need to know, and we'll get to that after this. Glad you're here. This is Daybreak. My name's Brian Noonan.
Wisconsin wakes up here. Back to Daybreak with Brian and Jamie.
7:06 right now. Thank you for joining us this morning. We appreciate it. If you're in Appleton and Oshkosh, listening on WISS, in Eau Claire, listening on 93.5 The Tap, or in La Crosse on WLCX, we are glad that you decided to join us this morning. My name is Jamie Martinson.
And I'm Brian Noonan. It's 7 o'clock. Wherever you are on the network, you are getting ready to start your day, and there is some stuff you need to know.
It's a wake-up call in more ways than one. Time for some you need to know.
Federal judges yesterday temporarily blocked Alabama's plan to use a new congressional map that could give Republicans an advantage in a key House race in the midterm election. A 3-judge panel in the state's long-running redistricting case issued the preliminary injunction that prevents the state, at least for now, from switching maps. It requires Alabama to continue using the same court-ordered districts under which congressional representatives were elected in 2024. Lawyers representing black voters in the state's lengthy redistricting case had sought the primary injunction, arguing the same panel in 2023 found the state map was intentionally discriminatory against black voters.
This is good news, and I will say, too, in South Carolina, the Senate has blocked any redistricting attempts as well. So keep an eye on these southern states. Also, stuff you need to know closer to home, a new Department of Natural Resources rule updates regulations for keeping and handling animals like frogs, snakes, and turtles, a process that state officials say will protect species but raise some concerns among reptile keepers. These updates come after DNR undertook a comprehensive review of regulations for amphibians and reptiles, many of which had not been updated since the 1990s. The department said it received feedback that previous rules were difficult to interpret and enforce, and they wanted to bring Wisconsin more in line with other states. Many of the rules stem from concerns about limiting reptile and amphibian diseases that are making their way into the country.
And can we all agree that the shirtless snake guy at any outdoor festival is the creepiest guy on the planet?
Yes, very much so.
I will die on that hill.
There you go.
Staying outdoors in Wisconsin, Wisconsinites looking to take their all-terrain or utility terrain vehicle out on the trails should be mindful of new statewide rules going into effect on June 1st. Under the new rules, which take effect Monday, anyone operating a UTV must wear a seatbelt. The multi-passenger off-road vehicles also must meet new window tint restrictions similar to other passenger vehicles. ATV or UTV operators are also barred from towing objects on trails or routes. Operators towing a person on ice must limit their speed to 10 miles an hour, and in addition, intentionally causing property damage with an ATV or UTV can result in a fine up to 3 times the cost of damage to the repair. It also stipulates that an ATV or UTV operator who is involved in a crash has a duty to render aid to others involved in the incident.
And in our final headline here this morning, DNR has been very busy.
I was going to say we're very eco-friendly this morning.
A
lot of outdoor news. Summer's coming.
I was
People
just
are going to be
say
outdoors.
It's Wisconsin, and we like our outdoor space, right? NENA filed a lawsuit against the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources after the agency rejected key aspects of the city's development plan for Arrowhead Park, including a restaurant. The 30-acre park at the south end of Little Bake Butte des Morts is a capped landfill containing paper sludge contaminated with PCBs, which are considered a probable human carcinogen. The property was deeded to the city by the Wisconsin legislature in 1951 for a public purpose. The DNR is responsible for approving any excavation or construction at the landfill. According to this lawsuit, the DNR has asserted that the construction and operation of a welcome center that has concessions, a restaurant, a museum, an observation deck, bathrooms, or park information center would constitute a privatization of the lake bed and would not be permitted. Kind of sounds like before I want any of those things, I want somebody to check the land, do a little cleanup, and make sure there's no PCBs.
Yeah. I don't want to be eating a snack on some paper sludge. No, thank you.
No.
All right, well, that's some stories, but now let's get to the big story. 4 out of 5 respondents to a new statewide poll said they backed a failed bipartisan deal struck earlier this month between the Democratic governor, Evers, and 2 legislative Republicans, Voss and LeMahieu, that would have spent $1.8 billion of the state's projected surplus to send rebates to taxpayers, reduce property taxes, and funnel more state funds into schools. This came 2 weeks ago. It'll be a week ago Monday. It was dead by last week at this time.
Yeah.
People immediately came out against this proposed bill for a number of reasons. We kept hearing, oh, it was all going to come from the surplus, right? Oh, that surplus. They left out the part where it was a projected surplus. We didn't have the money sitting there.
Right.
We kind of thought we were going to get the money. And then, oh my goodness, found out that after the deal was analyzed, after it had already died, the Legislative Fiscal Bureau looked at it and said, with the state spending the way it is now and this new bill, it would have cost the state nearly $3.5 billion over the next 4 years. Mm-hmm. So all the good vibes that some people had, but still people are saying, no, we want schools funded. We wanted a little money back because people think people think short term, and I said this when it came out. Sometimes a short term win is enough while you fight for the long term goals.
Yeah. And this bill, I think, was probably doomed from the beginning, mostly because Democrats felt like, and Republicans alike, felt like it'd been done under closed doors, behind closed doors, in the cloak of night kind of thing, and nobody really had any say in what was actually happening.
Yeah, but all right, can we talk about that point for 1 second? Because I don't think backroom deals are the way to go. But
No.
I think at some point, something has to be done, because they had been debating this stuff, both sides, for so long. All right, nobody wants to compromise. And yes, we know Evers, Voss, LeMay, none of them are running for re-election. They're all done.
Yep.
So maybe they wanted this as part of their, at least there was something that came out of it.
Right.
So I don't care if it got done in the back room. You still got to vote on it. Don't be a petulant little baby. And sometimes you got to get something compromised to get out and vote on it and bring it to light and start a conversation.
It turns out, according to this new Marquette poll, though, that 80% of people who responded, including 77% of Republicans, 81% of independents, and 82% of Democrats, said that the deal should have passed. Now, here's what I am going to say about this, though. This particular poll was done between May 20th and May 21st. The story broke on May 21st that this particular bill would have actually ended up putting the Wisconsin state government in the red. So that is information that perhaps people didn't know. Would it have changed minds? No. That's my question.
It changed. That part of it did change my mind on the whole scope of it. My stance on I don't care, them whining about the backroom deal.
Course.
I don't care. I wanted to see some compromise. I wanted to see something get done. But yes, that number would have been helpful at the very beginning. Because I think it would have cemented more people on the side of the opposition to say, all right, I see because the arguments that the opposition made were not this.
Yes.
This wasn't their argument. They were making arguments about, well, this is only short-term. Okay, that to me is not an argument.
Yes. And
this is an argument.
The numbers we're referring to come from a legislative fiscal bureau analysis. If the deal would have passed, it would have actually turned a more than $2 billion surplus into more than $2.9 billion deficit by the summer of 2029. That's assuming that there were no other changes in revenue or spending. So, but I think that's just it. If you were somebody who answered this poll, right, and you had the initial information in front of you, and you're somebody who's looking at your property taxes going, oh my gosh, this would have actually helped me, then you get that information.
Right.
Would it have changed how you responded to the poll? That was what the first thing that popped into my head when I was reading this last night.
855-75-CIVIC, 855-752-4842. Jamie posed the question. I think it's a good one. Let's hear from you. Did that fiscal report change how you felt about this proposal, or did it just cement your objections to it? Now, I think one thing that wouldn't have changed is this other part, because in the poll, people were asked if the deal should be passed now or if lawmakers should revisit the proposal next season. 69% of the respondents supported passing the deal immediately. 21 said it would better delay the action until next year. So I guess that does bolster what we're saying about if there was the fiscal part, then would change, if that would change it too. 68% of Republicans, 67% of independents, 74% of Democrats said they would prefer to see the deal passed now rather than next year. That was another big talking point, and one point that I made, because you can't guarantee, if you're a Democrat, you couldn't guarantee that your party is going to be in power, that you're going to win the trifecta and everything's going to be pie in the sky like you think. And if you're Republican, you don't know, if you don't make some compromise, you could be giving away the store come November.
Right. And I think for a lot of people in Wisconsin, right, the property tax reform and the property tax relief question looms large. Additional school funding also looms large because, these school districts are continually facing budget pressure, and then these referendums continually end up on ballots year after year after year. But I think the entire conversation raises serious questions about long-term state finances and whether Wisconsin alone can just afford any sort of major spending commitments if the economy slows down or even if our revenue declines. And the fact that we are looking at a possible complete change of leadership from top to bottom in the state, that's also going to loom large, because we know that the way that a Republican governor versus a Democratic governor handles this situation is going to be vastly different. It's going to be vastly different. And I don't know. There has to be some sort of compromise. And if you're somebody who's just hedging your bets, waiting for your party to take control, I think that's a bad plan. I think it's a really bad plan.
No, you never count your chickens, especially when it comes to elections. Why would you assume that, oh yeah, all signs point to we're going to win them all? That's never the way. Only though about half the people who responded to this said this is going to be a big deal. They said it'll be, we'll think about it. It's okay. It's somewhat important for the next election. So, yeah, people are outraged now, but in another few months, there's going to be something else to be outraged about.
Of course.
A week later, there was something else to be outraged about. So a quarter of the respondents said this is going to be very, very important to how they decide to vote in November. And then 21% said about the same amount. Said,
do you think, as we go forward with the gubernatorial election and a Democratic gubernatorial primary, do you think that this will stay on the top of people's minds? Is this going to be a major issue when people are looking at who the next governor of Wisconsin should be?
I would say not this bill, not this proposal in particular, but of course, school funding and property taxes are, if you're a gubernatorial candidate, and these are not the top two things. Tom Tiffany is already touting all this law and order. Law and order, okay, duh. Everybody, I don't care who you are. And I'm sorry to put it so bluntly and simply, but it is simple. Who does it? Who's against law and order? Shut up. Everybody knows. We want to know how we're going to afford to send our kids to school and why our house is so expensive. That's what. Address that. And you can sway a lot of different voters. When we come back, we will swipe and maybe we will stay. It's Daybreak. I'm Brian Noonan.
I'm Jamie Martinson. 7:19 right now. It's the Civic Media Network. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. 22 minutes after 7. Hopefully you are having a great start to your Wednesday. It is time for Swipe or Stay. This is where we put the politics aside for just a few minutes and we dive into the world of celebrities. With our senior producer, Frank, pop culture is always a fun conversation. How are you today?
I am good. I think we have some interesting stories, unlike our usual ones.
Wow, then let's get to it. That doesn't.
I know, if that doesn't sell it, I don't know what will.
Boy, yeah. Usually this segment blows, but today
I am the law and order producer.
Today it's going to be so good. Just today.
Just today.
You're lucky you're listening today, because yesterday in the dumper.
Stupid. Yeah. Thumbs down. All right, so here's how it's going to work. I'm going to read some vague pop culture headlines. Brian and Jamie are either going to stay or they're going to swipe to the next one. Our whimsical producer, Parker, can be the tiebreaker if they can't decide.
I'm whimsy.
Did you get like a calendar of the day, word of the day calendar or something for your desk so you can use big words?
I got to work Jamie, I got to work stuff in. We got to keep things fresh. We got to keep it moving.
Maybe you had a Lothaurus sitting there.
Russell Crowe.
Yes.
Russell Crowe. We're moving on. Russell Crowe issues warning to fans.
I didn't turn the audio up on this video. I am going to stay.
Stay.
Russell Crowe addressed fans and autograph seekers outside of a hotel. And here is the exact quote saying, stay where you are. Don't effing push in on me.
Wow.
I'll come to you. Give everyone space. He then followed it up with, as soon as somebody is a Richard, and he didn't say Richard, I'm gone. Are we clear? And then he started signing as soon as everybody agreed to it. Now
he looked a little angry. Just walking out, it was like, dude, why are you angry now? You haven't even started.
But
he always kind of looks angry, though. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, it's Russell Crowe.
Right?
True.
What do you expect? He fights people.
This is also true.
He went on Twitter to defend himself because TMZ published it as a story, as almost like a hit piece. And he said, this is clickbait. Everybody got their autograph and a selfie.
Yeah.
The passage to the hotel was kept free for guests. And I still got to the airport on time. One man, no security guards, handled. What is your problem? And I feel like he's kind of got a point.
He's true.
Oh,
it's
more
true.
than kind of. He's 100% got a point. He placated the fans. He set some clear ground rules that were not unreasonable. Just don't push up on me. And everybody got a chance. So, yeah. And TMZ's job is to create clickbait. Russell Crowe's job is to be Russell Crowe.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess they both did their job.
I almost feel like I got the full experience. I feel like I got the full experience of Russell Crowe's coming out guns a-blazing.
Yeah, and the fact that he doesn't have security, that's cool. Good for him. Story number 2.
Moving on. NFL quarterback sparks controversy.
Oh, I think I know this story.
Oh,
we have not talked about this.
We have
No,
not.
we have
so,
not.
Frank, I know you're chomping at your bit. Stay.
I'll stay.
You're going to stay. Jackson Dart, the quarterback for the New York Football Giants, is causing some controversy in his own locker room.
Yeah.
Why,
this
ask?
blew up.
Why, Frank?
On him.
He introduced the President of the United States at one of his rallies.
I got to start this off with a Go Big Blue. I'd love it if y'all would follow with me. Go Big Blue. Go Big Blue. Go Big Blue. Go Big Blue.
Both people in the audience not following.
What an honor, what a privilege
doesn't
it is to be here. And without further ado, I'm grateful, I'm honored, I'm pleasured to introduce the 45th and 47th President of the United States of America, President Donald J. Trump.
And the crowd goes
him?
mild.
Yeah, it was like, all
It was
6
an
of them.
interesting choice of words, and nobody knows
Somebody
how to chant there.
pleasured him yeah, nobody wants to chant Go Big Blue.
No.
Where was this rally?
This was in New York.
Okay.
Oh, so you'd think, so there probably were Giants fans there.
There were a lot of Jets fans, too.
True.
Interesting.
There may be more I don't know the exact demographic of how it's split. It may be more Jets fans in New York and more Giants fans in New Jersey. But anyway, here's where it kind of got controversial is Giants linebacker Abdul Carter said, I thought this was AI.
Yeah. Yeah.
Shaking my head. And then he came out and said that they hashed it out and had a conversation as men. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say that the Cowboys and Eagles defensive players this season will not share that same sentiment. But do you think if you're a quarterback, is it okay to go and be at presidential rallies?
He's a citizen. I'm not a fan of the stay in your lane.
Right.
He introduced him. He didn't give a big speech on it, but that's his right too. But if you do it, you got to face the blowback. I mean, I don't know. He has a right to go. He has a right to go as long as it doesn't violate team guidelines, which I'm sure he had to sign a million papers about that. So
Aaron Rodgers was almost a vice president, and there was a lot of people who still loved him.
I forgot about that.
Wow, I forgot about that.
That was a chapter in the story, too.
Yeah.
Just in case we all forgot our quarterback history this morning.
We all did, yes. Wow.
Parker, we got time for one more?
Yep, we got about a minute left.
All right, we'll do a quick one. Executor of Michael Jackson's estate passes away.
Swipe.
Yeah, swipe.
Oh, okay. Well, we don't have much time. Celebrity sports fans have been wronged.
Yeah, stay. See, there we go.
Oh, there we go. All right, some New York Knicks fans have been wronged by the Cleveland Cavaliers having their courtside seats revoked from the organization from that Game 4 in which the Knicks swept the series.
Swept them.
They took the courtside seats from them, voided them, and moved them back a couple of rows. Fat Joe is speaking out amongst other celebrities. Go check it out. That's Swipe or Stay.
Thank you, Frank. Yes, top tier today. There's a new book out about the president's second term. It's called Betrayed. America Didn't Vote for This. We will talk to one of the people involved in this book when we come back. It is Daybreak, and this is the Civic Media Network.
Now back to more of Daybreak with Brian and Jamie.
7:35 right now. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. It is the Civic Media Network. My name is Jamie Martinson.
And good morning, I'm Brian Noonan. A new book is out by a bipartisan and nonpartisan group of policymakers called the Common Sense Coalition. They've come together and analyzed Trump's second term, and the results of that analysis, to put it simply, are not good. In the new book, Betrayal, America Didn't Vote for This, they issue a comprehensive indictment of President Trump's latest term, calling it, quote, catastrophic, not only American democracy, but national security and economic growth. Ira Shapiro is one of the editors of the book. He joins us now. Ira, thank you for being here. As I looked at the breakdown of the book and what it is, my first thought was, yeah, everybody should know this. But before we get started, give us a quick explanation of the Common Sense Coalition.
Thank you, Brian, and it's good to be with you. We came together as sort of a group of veteran leaders in various sectors who were terribly concerned that the second Trump presidency was different than any presidency that the United States has ever had. That it was actually quite a move toward authoritarianism. And as we did our work and talked about it, we became even more committed to the view that we had to present the comprehensive picture of what has happened at that time, it was going to be a year, but it actually took us 16 months to sort of assess what was going on. So the Common Sense Coalition is modeled after the great Thomas Paine, who wrote Common Sense and galvanized the colonists to rise up and oppose the British king. And we're trying to invoke some of that common sense to share with the American people the magnitude of this particular disastrous presidency.
Now, in this book, and again, the title is Betrayed, America Didn't Vote for This. The argument is that voters, especially Trump voters, were promised certain things. What are you seeing that they were promised in 2024 that they're essentially just not getting from this president right now?
Well, thank you, Jamie. It's becoming easier every day to see that.
Yes.
I mean, look, Donald Trump conducted a remarkable political comeback. He won the election fairly and squarely. He promised a booming economy and lower prices, secure borders, and probably was elected to wage some kind of war on wokeness. He wasn't elected to make Canada a former friend, to stop cancer research, to cover up the Epstein files. Certainly wasn't elected to wage the war in Iran. And you can go down the list, and what you discover is that this is a presidency unlike others. And I've opposed various presidents in the past, but I always felt they were working for what they thought was the country's best interests. And this particular presidency is a revenge tour driven by grievance, driven by essentially a desire for self-glorification and greed. He's not doing anything for the American people. He's about Donald Trump. And the unfortunate thing, and what prompted our coalition to come together, is that too many so-called leaders are sitting back and doing nothing about this. Congress, and particularly the business community, they find excuses for staying out of it.
Well, it benefits them to stay out of it. Wouldn't you agree that
Yes.
they're the recipients of some of these broken promises?
Well, I think that's right. And look, one thing that most Americans, we always hear that we're a divided country, and we are. And certainly Wisconsin has been ground zero for some of the political battles. But if you look at it, there are a lot of things that people agree on. We have terrible inequality in the country, and you shouldn't have government policies making it worse. And yet, that's exactly what Trump, supposedly representing the left behind people, his policies are making our inequality even worse. It's been a vast, vast triumph of the handful of wealthiest people in this country at the expense of everyone else.
We're joined today by Ira Shapiro. He is an international lawyer. He's a consultant, a former ambassador. He's also the editor of a new book entitled Betrayed: America Didn't Vote for This. He is also the founder of the Common Sense Coalition. Now, I found as I was reading the breakdown of this book, it basically talks about the Trump economic agenda and how it's failed to deliver a manufacturing renaissance. Wisconsin is a major manufacturing and farming state. And before we went on air, you were talking how you have history with a former Wisconsin Senator, Gaylord Nelson. So you know a little bit about the state of Wisconsin. But how are the current economic policies affecting states like Wisconsin differently than what voters were promised was going to happen during that campaign period?
Well, that would take a long time.
It would take a while.
But look, there has been over time a long decline in manufacturing jobs. The Biden presidency succeeded in restoring some of them and made significant investments in manufacturing, particularly in terms of renewable energy, et cetera. I think Trump is sincere about certain things. I think he believes that there should be more coal jobs and more steel jobs in America. But if you were trying to build the American economy, you wouldn't be doing it through the Trump tariffs. You wouldn't be doing it by imposing greater costs on consumers and importers and manufacturers. So that's not a very good policy. And the results have been shown in essentially manufacturing jobs lost. But I want to say, Jamie, that when we wrote the book, we were going to make the economy the first chapter because that's what people care about. Ultimately, we made the first chapter the assault on the rule of law. The connecting thread of everything Donald Trump is doing is a contempt for the rule of law. And if you don't have the rule of law, if you're prosecuting your enemies and pardoning your friends, if you don't have the rule of law, it's very hard to do business, but it's also very hard to feel secure as in your personal lives. And everything, we had a chapter 1 on the rule of law, but it shows up in every chapter, contempt for the rule of law.
And you argue in the book then that this was an alarming statement to me, that it puts American citizens in danger from our own government. And that should alarm everybody, no matter what side of the aisle you're on. Can you give us some examples of the danger that we are put in by our government? And you started to touch on it a little bit.
Well, there are countless examples. I mean, certainly masked ICE agents in the streets of Minneapolis and other streets, people being deported for no crime other than the fact that they've been in America and working hard for 10, 15, 25 years. Prosecutions of the president's political opponents. And to Trump's credit, he doesn't hide any of this stuff. I mean, it's all out there for people to see. It's hard to think about the notion that you would have a president who would say, we ought to really execute Senator Mark Kelly and Senator Alyssa Slotkin and 4 other members of the House because they said the military should not follow illegal orders. So the history of this period, and we try to offer a first snapshot because so much is going on. It's important to try to put some kind of framework on it so people can understand. But the history of this period is going to be quite remarkable. And the notion that the Republicans in Congress have not done anything to stop this, the notion that many of our most prominent business leaders are either silent or benefiting from it, this is totally unacceptable and is unacceptable to the American people.
Ira Shapiro is our guest this morning, international attorney and consultant, former ambassador, editor of the new book, Betrayed, America Didn't Vote for This. He's also the founder of the Common Sense Coalition. Obviously, Wisconsin vote is a swing state. We see this time and again. It's politically divided. It's one of the most politically divided in the country. What warning signs do you believe that independent and swing voters should be watching for right now, especially as we head into a midterm election cycle?
You know, the Common Sense Coalition is we're hoping that we wrote common sense, but I also think that I rely on the American people's common sense. I think that they are watching what's going on, how it affects their daily lives, particularly, around the kitchen table, as it's often said, but also what else is going on. They don't like the prosecution of Trump's enemies, and they don't like the destruction of the East Wing or the renaming of the Kennedy Center. And I think they watch the presidency, they'll watch carefully, and I think they'll get it during the course of this political year. The only real response in the short term is a sweeping Democratic victory in the congressional elections and the Senate elections.
We've talked about this a lot, Ira, and I think this book is going to help. And the book, again, Betrayed, America Didn't Vote for This. You can go to commonsensecoalition.net or pick up the book on Amazon. We're constantly inundated every day with more and more news and more outrageous actions and statements from this administration. But it's easy to get desensitized. But when you look at it as you said, the big picture with everything spelled out in front of you, it still amazes me that people are still supporting this. As you sat with all the people who were involved in the book, is there an explanation for that? Or is that still a fringe aberration? But it can't be when half the population voted for it.
Yes, I think that's true. And he obviously has a core of followers, strong core of followers, but I think that's getting reduced. Every poll shows that not only his overall approval is going down, but large disapproval of virtually every aspect of his agenda. I think people are getting it, but we'll see how this campaign plays out.
We have just a few seconds left. Is there anything that Congress can do at this moment to put reins on this president at this stage?
Oh, I think so. I mean, Congress could pass a war powers resolution about Iran. Congress is standing up to his East Wing construction site.
Ira, I'm sorry to interrupt. Unfortunately, we are out of time. Thank you for being here. Ira Shapiro, one of the editors of Betrayed, America Didn't Vote for This. Ira Shapiro, author.com, commonsensecoalition.net. Pick up the book.
Want to join in on the conversation? Call or text 855-75-CIVIC. Now back to Brian and Jamie.
7:52 right now. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. A warm and muggy day across most of the state and a chance for some thunderstorms even this afternoon into this evening. So just make sure you're weather aware if you have any outdoor activities. My name is Jamie Martinson.
And good morning. I'm Brian Noonan. So are license plate readers a good idea? Are they a safety measure or another way to just invade your privacy? 855-75-CIVIC, 855-752-4842. I despise these red light cameras, speed cameras, license plate readers. I don't need Big Brother watching every little thing, and I don't believe that they are a safety tool. I believe they are a revenue-generating tool for cities, and also ripe for exploitation, as we were seeing in a criminal case against former Milwaukee police officer who used a license plate reader to keep tabs on a person he was dating, and that's led to charges in department access to the system, or changes rather, not charges. Those changes have limited the number of police officers who have access to the Flock license plate reader system, and across the state, Jamie, departments are saying, we don't like, this is too much. Listen, people can already find us. The authorities can already find us. We have trackers in our pockets every day. If you have an iPass or whatever you want to call your Easy Pass, you've got one of those. I don't like these machines, and I'm heartened to see these other departments say, yeah, you know what?
This is actually a fascinating story. Flock cameras aside, right? What is happening in Milwaukee is actually a fascinating story. It's something like you would see on a Lifetime movie. But this former Milwaukee police officer, who he's resigned from the department, in case you're wondering, was actually charged in February with allegedly using the Flock cameras to check the location of the vehicle of, as you mentioned, the person he was dating plus that person's ex. And in response to that, 4 members of the Milwaukee Common Council wrote to the Milwaukee Fire and Police Commission to say that the incident underscored a, quote, systematic oversight gap rather than an isolated failure. That feels like both of those things all together.
It's definitely an isolated failure, but it is, if he can do it, then it's a overlooked gap.
Right. 370 members of the Milwaukee Police Department used to have access to the Flock camera system. That is, according to the department's risk manager, now just over 100 have access. So that story alone is crazy, and it goes into a much deeper conversation about about personal privacy and how Flock cameras are basically invading that, which is why so many communities, as you alluded to, Brian, have gotten rid of Flock cameras. In fact, in November, the Verona Common Council voted to not renew their contract with Flock. The mayor at that time said there was definitely members of the community who didn't want Flock spying on Verona.
Exactly. And before people come out, listen, if we didn't have cameras are good for crime, and that stop. Just because you can have a camera there doesn't mean you need a camera there.
Right.
I don't know. I've never lived in Verona. I don't know if they're crime riddled. I'm doubting it. But I'm guessing the amount of crime in Verona does not necessitate 24-hour camera surveillance of the populace.
No, I don't know. They're very strange. I don't love Flock cameras.
The cameras or Verona?
The cameras. Yes, says Parker. I love that.
Hold on, Parker.
That was very good. Right there today.
Yeah,
Did
Parker
you get sleep
Parker
last night? Because you're right there today.
Actually, no. That's why I'm there.
All right. In April, Dane County supervisors voted 32-1 to cut funding that the Dane County Sheriff's Office had used for these cameras. The city of Monona's police chief said that he decided in April not to renew the department's contract with Flock, saying that this was due to ongoing local conversation about the company. Mm-hmm. And then in May, actually just a few weeks ago, May 6th, because we're still in May, the Appleton mayor, Jake Woodford, said that the city was ending their use of Flock cameras with the city as well, saying that after careful consideration and taking into account from the community, they were going to end their use of them throughout the city as well. So obviously, citizens are also worried about what happens with these cameras. And I think it's not even as maybe egregious as what happened with the Milwaukee police officer.
But we've become way too comfortable giving away our privacy.
Yes.
And I'm going to paraphrase the Thomas Jefferson quote, that if you give up freedom for security, you deserve neither. And we're so intent on listening to people who scream about lawlessness and that crime is overrunning every city, big and small, that we're willing to give away everything for the illusion of safety. And that's what these cameras create. They create an illusion of safety because even in the biggest cities where there are cameras everywhere, guess what? There's still crime.
Yeah.
That's how it goes. So you may want to sleep under that false blanket of, oh, the cameras are watching, everything will be fine. It's not.
Well,
it's not, and you're just giving away pieces of yourself every day.
One of the things that I always think about with these flock cameras, and as you're rightfully alluding to, is where does all of that data go once it's collected?
Right.
Like,
Yes.
is it just sitting
Who's
on a
using
server? But obviously, this police officer was able to use it for more nefarious purposes. But that doesn't mean other people won't also be able to get access to that information that just sits on a server somewhere and just goes nowhere.
And even the best companies have been hacked. You don't know what people could. You don't know what somebody at Flock could do.
Right.
If they
People
were
are weird.
predisposed to do that
People
kind
are
of thing.
weird.
Yes.
That is the moral of the story. And there's always going to be somebody who wants to get the wrong information or the information for the wrong intentions.
And it's funny, we'll put up fences around our houses, we'll stay inside, we'll do everything online, and yet we give away, once we walk out the door, we give away our privacy to everybody. All right, well, we come back, hour 3. So listeners on WMDX, have a good day. You can listen to us on the app, so hurry over there. I'm Brian Noonan. This is Daybreak.
I'm Jamie Martinson, 7:59 right now. Thank you for joining us today. It's the Civic Media Network.
Across the state of Wisconsin, Daybreak with Brian and Jamie is back.
It's 8:06 right now. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We do appreciate it. You're listening to the Civic Media Network. Forgot what I was going to say there for a minute. I mean, it's not that hard. I'm like a trained monkey at this point. Words just escaped me.
It's all right. Listen, I am the last one who's going to get upset with somebody for forgetting what they're going to say. You want to see? You can say your name. You remember that?
I do. I'm Jamie Martinson. There we go.
That's
Yay
right.
me.
Because I can't start talking till I hear you say your
We're like
name.
Pavlov
I get
dogs.
right. No. Listen, it's all very spontaneous. I'm Brian Noonan. Hi, how are you? 855-75-CIVIC, 855-752-4842 is how you get involved. It's the final hour of the program. And if you're going to work, you might think, man, oh man, I bust my hump here in Wisconsin every day. I'm probably the hardest. We got to be the hardest working people in the country here in Wisconsin. No, that would be wrong. On average, actually, Wisconsin residents don't put in as many hours at work as people in most other states. Now, that's according to latest data from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. And I know when you hear that, you're probably either banging on your dashboard, flipping off your radio, because, Brian, you have no idea how hard I work.
Right.
I don't, and I'm sure you do. But on average, and I'm sure you're all above average, I know that. The state's residents worked an average of 32.9 hours a week in April 2026. That's the 8th fewest out of all 50 states and Washington, D.C.
Wow.
And that's as of data released on May 22nd.
Maybe that just means we have good work-life balance skills.
Yeah, we could do it that way. Let's spin it that way. Let's.
We know how to work, but we also know how to go have fun. Does any of this coincide with when the Brewer season started, by the way? I mean,
April.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right.
it was
See?
April.
See?
April
We've
was
got our
opening
priorities
day,
in the state of Wisconsin.
Man, you are Susie Sunshine. You'll spin it that way. I was like, hey, that's great. We don't have to work as hard. You're like, oh, no, we work very hard. We just also know there's a time not to work.
I'm trying to make people feel better this morning as they're listening to this, drudging themselves out the door to get to work, to get to their desk. I'm trying to make them feel better about the fact that they're about to do a 60-hour work week, because that's what actually happened.
Well, and this will probably make some people really angry. According to this, the Wisconsin residents earned an average of $34.69 an hour in April. That was enough to rank 26th in the country. So not only are we underpaid, but maybe that's because we're underworked. We're not working as much.
There we
so
go.
we're not making as much.
I'll
Look at Parker.
also
Parker,
spin
get to
this.
work. Don't look at me.
I'll also spin this. Maybe that's why Wisconsin refuses to raise their minimum wage past $7.25 because somebody saw these statistics and we're like, these people don't work enough anyway. They don't obviously need more money.
Well, perhaps we are one of 13 states. I don't know. Listen, speaking as a corporate boss, I like how you do that. You put on your boss hat. Only 13 states have a minimum wage of $7.25 an hour.
Ridiculous.
Last changed our minimum wage here in 2009 when it went up for a 3-step increase from $5.15 an hour is where it was in 2007.
Less
and
than
it made it up to
20 years ago, people were making around $5.15 an hour in this state.
There's no.
Who
what
the
can you
hell
do for
can live
$5
on
an hour?
that?
What can you do for $7 an hour?
Who can live on $7.25
Parker,
an hour?
how do you do it?
Oh, it's a lot of hard work, Brian.
I don't know, 32 hours a week, it sounds
32
like.
hours a week, yeah.
32 hours a week for $7 an hour.
I mean, let's think about
Radio.
this. Right?
Cash in.
Let's think about this, though, for a second. For people who are making $7.25 an hour, we are talking about the imploding cost of housing and property taxes. Right. We're talking the imploding cost of groceries, healthcare, and the people who just don't have it now because they literally can't afford it. We're talking about the prices at the gas pump so that you can get to your $7.25 an hour job. And then on top of it, if you have kids, oh, by the way, they need to go somewhere too while you're making $7.25 an hour. What are we doing?
Well, we're listening to Tom Tiffany, who told us to get jobs that AI could replace.
Oh, my gosh.
So maybe, maybe instead of working at McDonald's where they're putting in all the kiosks where you don't even have to talk to a person anymore. No, and I don't know. I don't know I can't understand it. I don't know how people can't do it. So we'll pay them a minimum wage, and then we'll get upset if they apply for Badger Care or SNAP benefits.
But we don't want you to have
else.
that either. We don't want you to have that either because that is for not you. I don't know who it's
for. That is
for
not you.
I don't know
it's for everybody, not you.
I don't know who it's for. You're only telling me I can make $7.25 an hour. You've made education basically beyond comprehensible for funding. You're taking away all of the options for students, either whether you are a newly graduated high school student, whether you're somebody who's in the workforce who wants to go do better. You've made it impossible to afford that, and now you're telling me that with $7.25 an hour, I'm not allowed to have anything that would actually help me get a leg up or maybe even take care of myself in some sort of humane fashion. Okay. All right. Perfect.
Yeah, you seem to have a handle on it. What's your problem? You seem to understand the system pretty well, Jamie. I don't know why you're complaining about it. It all seems logical. I understand the system.
I'll be honest. I find the system stupid. I find the system completely stupid, not helpful, and absolutely incomprehensible at this point for what we're actually trying to do. But that's okay.
And a lot of this does tie in, as you said, to education, and we're trying to figure that out. And how do we educate young people so that they're better equipped for the future? Well, Jill Underly is she's the superintendent of the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction. They announced a new statewide initiative yesterday called Portrait of a Graduate. It's designed to help define the knowledge, skills, and experiences Wisconsin students need to succeed after high school. This is a long time coming. DPI says the effort is aligned with its strategic plan and aims to create a shared statewide vision for student readiness in college, careers, civic life, and community leadership. The state education leaders say the initiative will not change graduation requirements, testing standards, or create a new mandated curriculum. I think at some point it's going to have to make adjustments to those things, because if you're truly looking at a plan that's going to help students succeed after high school, whether they're going to college or not, if they're going into a trade, if they're going into the workforce, whatever they're doing, you need to make adjustments in high school to prepare them for that. And isn't that what Isn't that what all education is for, to prepare you for the next step in life, whether you're going on for more education or not?
It's supposed to be. I'm going to be honest. I graduated from high school in the Stone Age. So I know a lot of things have changed over the course of time. However,
that makes me pre-Stone Age.
however, I feel like as you graduate from high school, you are very ill prepared to take on the real world.
Yes.
You have been told what to do. You have been told what schedule to keep. You've told what time to be places,
how long to sit. Do not move. Do not get up. You had to ask to go to the bathroom.
Yes, and I understand that several high school students come out. They're very successful. I was lucky enough that I had parents who also tried to instill common sense in me. And I don't necessarily believe it's the school's role to do that. However, I think there should be more life preparedness classes as well, right? Things that are common sense that you have to do every day as an adult.
Because here's the thing, and I didn't come from a family of means, and we didn't have discussions about money or finances. My parents were raising 5 kids on educators' salaries, so we did fine. We weren't, we were fine, but there was not a lot of extra money to talk about investments and that kind of thing. Then you go to college, and the first day you're walking through the student center, and there's a million people trying to give you free credit cards.
Ooh,
and so I have
shiny.
always said that high school seniors should have a required finance class. Not finance big theory, but real world. Hey, this is how a credit card works.
Yes.
This is how you balance a checkbook.
Yep.
This is how you can read a bill and how you can do different things. Real world things that the minute you're away from home, you have to deal with.
Yes.
No, I'm embarrassed to say, I got out of college. I got a checkbook when I got my friend. I never balanced my checkbook.
Right. Yeah.
I just went until I had no money.
Yeah.
And then I forgot that they actually take fees sometimes. I was like,
now I'm
I gotta leave
negative.
a little money for that. Now I gotta get. But it's embarrassing now to say it, but I didn't know any better.
But I don't think you're alone.
I think that's the kind of thing.
I don't think you're alone. And I will honestly say one of the advantages I had homeschooling my kids was that we worked on these things every single day. These were little things that my kids were able to learn from and watch us do, and I implemented into our homeschool curriculum. I mean, my kids both had checking accounts by the time they were 11 or 12, and it was because they earned allowance. And it was simply because when they were 11 or 12, I mean, they had like $20 in there. But they learned the process of going into the bank to deposit their money. You couldn't go negative. Yes, you could buy that item if you want it, but how much money do you have in your account? Are you able to do so? I also had a fun initiative with my kids where once a month, each of them, and they took turns, they got to plan a meal for a week's worth of meals, but then they had to go grocery shopping with me with a budget. And I taught them that, okay, if this is what you want, that's fine. But this time around, you might have to buy the generic version because you still have 3 or 4 items on this list that you have to purchase. They were real world applied skills. And it was also fun to do it because each of them got to go with mom one-on-one. And then we'd have lunch and we'd hang out. So we made it a fun thing. It wasn't so much of a task. They didn't realize they were learning. But boy, oh boy, are they frugal now, and do they know how to shop for themselves, and they don't overspend.
Yeah, and I look back, I've had jobs since I was 13. I mean, I've always worked. And I'm like, where'd all that money go?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
I guess I spent it 12 ounces at a time, I guess. I don't know.
Parker, you're the youngest of all of us here. You just graduated from high school in a year that you can remember.
True.
My graduation was at the Big Bang.
Would have real life skills classes been sometimes better, do you think, than just the book learning all the time and the writing of research papers?
Yeah, there was definitely an elective or two that you didn't need to do. Like, I didn't need to take drawing. Let's be honest.
I did it to fill a credit.
Yeah. I didn't need to take drawing. I definitely... Checkbook? What? I don't know.
And that's it. I'm all for creativity, and I'm all for young people learning to be creative and using that part of their brain as well. But there's practical, real-world skills that you just don't get by taking a drawing course, right?
Yeah.
Can you draw now, Parker?
Yeah, about as poorly as I could before.
Okay, good. But at least you learned how to do it incorrectly. That's fantastic.
That's true.
That's
I'm
right.
failing correctly now.
No.
Well, that's important, Parker. Fail correctly.
In case anybody's wondering, Green Bay Area Public Schools already launched a program similar to what DPI is initiating here back in 2024. And they say that the process has involved a lot of work to align school systems with the skills and outcomes identified by the community. And if any parent is listening today or grandparent and you're wondering about this program, DPI has already been holding listening sessions around the state. They're going to host additional virtual sessions today from noon until 1. And then on June 3rd, again, from 6 until 7, you do have to sign up online to be a part of those. But you just have to go to the DPI website to do so. And let me tell you, this is a new initiative. So it's right there on the homepage. You can't miss it if you're interested.
It just makes more sense. With the cost of college going up, a lot of people aren't going. A lot of people don't want to go to college, and there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
You know what people might want to do? They might want to move to Wausau because there's money involved. Yes, how? You're thinking, ooh, money to move to Wausau? Tell us more. We will. Stick around. It's Daybreak on the Civic Media Network.
Local voices, statewide impact. It's Daybreak with Brian and Jamie.
Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Civic Media Network. We hope you are having a great Wednesday. I have a little note to myself that it is actually Wednesday because I am off this week because we didn't work on Monday. So in my brain, it's only Tuesday, but that's just a me thing. I digress.
I was off a little yesterday, but then yesterday recalibrated me, so I know it's hump day.
It is
we're
on
hump
the
downside after
we
this.
are.
Perhaps, I don't know about you guys. I see on Instagram and on the internet all the time these places that are offering you tons of money. Usually it's to move to a small remote island. And I always think to myself, one, I could use €1 million, and two, living on a small Irish island in the middle of the sea sounds pretty inviting to me,
That
quite
doesn't
frankly.
sound so bad, does it?
No, I would love it. And then I said it to Debbie, and she's like, yeah, let's go. And then we're still here. We're not moving to an island. But now I may not have to go that far. I wouldn't be isolated, but I'd be in Wausau, so that would be okay. Because the Greater Wausau Prosperity Partnership has received a $500,000 grant from the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation to attract new workers to Marathon County. The funding will support the Marathon County Workforce Relocation and Retention Initiative, which aims to draw out-of-state professionals, families, and remote workers to the area, according to a community announcement. The initiative will offer relocation incentives, employer partnerships, and quality-of-life marketing to attract new residents. The grant is part of a statewide $5 million investment by Governor Evers and WEDC to support workforce attraction initiatives across Wisconsin. I would take a little dough to, and all we got to do is...
Wausau's a lovely place.
I've been to Wausau numerous times.
I love
doing,
Wausau.
Doing comedy up there. So
there's a lot of great things and a lot of great people and fun things to do as well. There are certain communities that I feel like in this country, not just in Wisconsin, feel like they need a little incentive to attract higher demanding jobs. And this is part of the reason why this initiative started in Wausau, because they want people who work in engineering and healthcare. They want to be able to basically pair this financial incentive with a lifestyle that's focused onboarding process, so that they can, basically improve long-term retention according to the announcement that came out. But
and that's the thing. Most people, they say you see Wausau the first time as a tourist. But I love that they're also targeting remote workers because you could live anywhere. And if you're not familiar with it, or maybe you've driven through Wausau on your way up north and you're like, oh, it's really nice. Hey, guess what? You could live here. It's really nice. We'll give you a little incentive. We'll help you relocate. There's housing here.
Yeah.
I heard property taxes everywhere in Wisconsin a little high, but other than that, it's smart. It's a smart, because we talk about this a lot, especially with healthcare and teachers. The amount of people leaving Wisconsin after they've been trained in Wisconsin, they move other places. So why not start marketing and say, hey, we've got
Yeah.
We've got a little money to help you move here, and it's a great place. And the Visitors Bureau is involved, and it's the greater Wausau area. So it's all of Marathon County who are trying to do this. So maybe you don't want to live in town. Maybe you've always dreamt of living out of town and you work remotely. Just make sure they have good internet and you're set.
This is your opportunity. What I also love about this is that you alluded to it, with teachers leaving after they're trained, but this essentially attracts younger workers. And we know that in Wisconsin, the working population in several sectors is aging, and there isn't a lot of people to replenish some of this workforce. And I also love that this could attract young families looking for maybe a lower cost of living in a safe community where you still have substantial jobs and there's still things for you to do. Because that's just the key too,
that's
right?
That's the key.
Yeah.
Gotta have something to do.
Yes. And there's a lot of these small towns who have these incentives, and we've seen this happen across the country. But then you have small kids and you're like, oh, well, that's a great opportunity and that looks fantastic. Now I have to drive 2 hours to go have any sort of family recreational fun. That's not the case in Wausau, honestly. There's a lot to do in Wausau.
There is.
Yeah.
And you're up there, and if if that's the kind of life you're looking for, it's a perfect kind of plan. And you're not super far from Green Bay. What's it, a couple hours?
Yeah, not too bad.
Maybe.
Yeah, not too bad. I don't know. We spent a lot of time in Wausau because when we lived in South Dakota and Corey's family was in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, Wausau was our stopping point most times during a trip.
Okay.
Usually
That
we'd go from South Dakota to Minneapolis, spend like an hour or two in Minneapolis, let the kids run around, stretch their legs somewhere. Then we'd usually try to make it to Wausau where we'd stay overnight. And then we'd do the final leg of the trip so that we could get into the UP because that was about a 6-7 hour drive, depending on, where we were at and how long it took and how many potty breaks the kids needed along the way.
But those darn kids and their need to potty.
But we would try to get to Wausau early enough so that we could do some of those things. They have a great children's museum that I know we spent many hours in as we made our travels back and forth over the years. So, I appreciate the marketing that goes into these types of campaigns too. Because it is a way to showcase your town. And I think more towns would be better off if they did that, because it's not just about maybe getting people to move there. How about, getting tourism there and just getting people to be like, hey, let's go check it out. That looks kind of cool.
Yeah, instead of just driving through, stop, stay a while, see what you could do.
Yeah.
So, check it out online. You can look up everything to do in Wausau. And then mostly if you're out of state, I don't think that I'm sure they would love in-state people to move. Wisconsinites just move into another Wisconsin town, but they're trying to get an influx of people, keep that population growth up. All right, let's get it. We know this administration is very litigious. They love to sue everybody. Well, a former president is suing the Justice Department, and the question we have for you is, should presidential files be made public? We will talk about that on the other side. So many things to get to. It is Daybreak. I'm Brian Noonan.
I'm Jamie Martinson. 8:29 right now. You are listening to the Civic Media Network.
Local voices, statewide impact. It's Daybreak with Brian and Jamie.
It's 8:35 right now. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. And hey, don't forget, next week, it's more chances for you to win with our multi-state text to win contest. You get to accelerate into summer. We're going to be giving away some daily cash prizes. And then, of course, you're going to be eligible for the big grand prize drawing, Brian. It's good stuff. We've got a $250 gas card and another $250 in groceries. If you are a grand prize winner starting on Monday, you got to be listening throughout the day. today for your text to win word of the hour. Have your Civic Media app ready. And as you so aptly put earlier this morning when we talked about this, if you don't already, what are you doing? Because we talk about it all the time. So get your app ready. Be ready to text in and potentially win some stuff starting next week. Accelerate your summer. Text to win multi-state contest. There we go. There's my shameless plug for the morning.
No, I love it. And in that same vein of what are you waiting for, have you gone to Instagram and Facebook yet and liked our new pages, Daybreak with Brian and Jamie? You could do it there. And don't forget to subscribe on Spotify to our podcast. It's also a Daybreak with Brian and Jamie, and you can listen to any part of the show that you missed. Maybe you missed our fascinating interview this morning with Ira Shapiro and the new group Betrayed. America didn't vote for this. You might want to go back and listen to that or anything you may have missed. Yesterday, beaver parachuting. Did you miss that segment? That's sad. So you could go back and do that on Spotify, and of course the Civic Media app is free. Okay. Man, we love it when we hear the president is suing everybody and, he sued his own government. Well, now Joe Biden is getting into the game. Joe Biden is suing the Department of Justice. He filed a lawsuit against the Justice Department yesterday seeking to block the release of files related to interviews he conducted with a biographer that later became a central part of a special counsel investigation into his handling of classified documents. You remember that when they found documents in Joe Biden's garage, and he returned them right away, unlike some people who fought and blocked and hid and everything else. But yes, Joe Biden had some classified documents in his home. He filed it. He filed the lawsuit, like I said yesterday, in the District Court of the District of Columbia, and he seeks to block those 70 hours of audio files and transcripts to the House Judiciary Committee from interviews with ghostwriter Mark Zwonitzer that were used for his 2017 memoir, Promise Me, Dad. The interviews were conducted in 2016 and 2017. Now, that seems strange. Mm-hmm. He recorded them for an interview, for a book that he was going to publish. Why wouldn't he want them released? I would say the same thing if it were the other side.
Sure.
So I have to be fair and go, wait a minute, this doesn't really pass the smell test for me. Why? What are you afraid of, Joe?
Sometimes I have to wonder if it is just maybe there were private conversations on those tapes. And I'm not making excuses. I 100% agree. But then I start thinking about the fact that maybe there were private conversations. Maybe there were details that, he got into. Then on second thought was like, I don't know if we really need to put this into the book. And sometimes maybe it's just a matter of principle. Maybe Joe thinks, why are you digging into my stuff from 2016? I mean, yeah. I have no idea what would be the reasoning for that. Cindy from Appleton chiming in this morning to the question, should presidential files be made public? She says yes to releasing the files because they are a public employee. If you want to get in on the conversation today, 1-855-752-4842, 1-855-75-CIVIC. I mean, they are public employees, right? They are.
And there's
to a certain degree.
Biden and his attorneys are saying some of this stuff in there falls outside the Public Information Act. So of course, they are public employees, and there are certain things that have to be made public. You have to disclose. Their argument is, like, to your point about maybe it was personal conversations or details that have nothing to do with anything of the government. That's their argument. Listen, a lot of this falls outside the purview, and you're not entitled to this, which makes sense. So if that is the case, then my question was answered. Why not? Well, we don't have to get rid of. We'll give you this stuff because that's what's covered.
Right.
We're not going to give you this because it's none of your business that I told Jill I wanted a peanut butter and jelly sandwich for lunch during the interview.
And I also think, too, I'm going to go out on a limb here and speculate for just a moment. I'm going to guess that if Joe Biden was writing this book, and just by the title of it, Promise Me, Dad, there may have been details about Hunter's past that maybe he didn't feel like he should be the one sharing. He's always given Hunter Biden the privilege and I guess the dignity of being able to share his own story while acknowledging that, yes, he went through a lot. He's had a lot of issues. And I think, too, there's going to probably be personal details about the loss of Beau Biden. Would be my guess that maybe Joe Biden just isn't ready for the world to potentially hear. And that has nothing to do with his job, as you rightfully point out, as president of the United States.
And 3 different times, there was a Freedom of Information Act lawsuit to try to unseal these. All of those failed. One suit involved the Heritage Foundation, which we all know is a conservative think tank. They said, they told a federal judge that they plan to release the files with redactions, both the committee and the Heritage Foundation on June 15th, to both the committee and the foundation, barring a ruling. Now, President Biden had exerted executive privilege back in 2024 when all about this. This seems like one more because, listen,
feels like a fishing
every
expedition.
day we're blaming something else on Biden, right? Every day this administration blames Joe Biden. Even though they've been in power 4 years before him and now 2 years after him, everything's Joe Biden's fault.
Yeah.
So this smacks of another, and then throw the Heritage Foundation in there, smacks of another just weaponization of the DOJ to try to get something on political rivals who still are in Donald Trump's head all the time.
It feels like a fishing expedition. Is what it essentially feels like. I mean, until you throw in think tanks like the Heritage Foundation, I'm like, okay, maybe somebody needs to look into it based on the act. But at the same time, then you start throwing think tanks, and then I'm kind of like, fishing expedition. We're just hoping that something was in there so that this particular administration has something to fall back on.
What do they think is there's going to be? He inadvertently on the table. Yep, we stole the election. What? I mean, what are they looking for? What do they think is going to be on there?
Plus, it was in 2016 and 2017, so Biden wouldn't
we're
be.
We're going to steal the election. Just so you know, we're going to steal this election.
In 2016, Trump was president. He'd already defeated Hillary, and I'm not sure Joe Biden even thought he was going to run for president 4 years later. So
no, it wasn't until later in Trump's first term.
So what are you going to potentially find other than just wanting to get into the private files of a man who is no longer president of the United States?
We just want to tie an old man up in court and make him suffer and make his life hard. You saw it when he changed that, when he created the little gallery in the hall outside the West Wing, the presidential gallery.
Pen.
Yes, yeah. And he rewrote all. He's a punitive little man. And he just wants to make Joe Biden's life harder. He wants to make everybody's life harder because no matter how many times he says it, people are not going to think he's the greatest president of all time. Sorry, it's not going to happen. Some might.
Let me ask a question. Do you find it odd, based on how this president behaves for people he feels have wronged him, and how this DOJ likes to go after those political opponents? I'm going to put that in air quote. Do you find it odd that this president in 2.5 terms, we'll say, has not made an attempt to go after Barack Obama? Is that weird?
Wow. That's a good question. Yes, I find it weird, but he
attacks with words. I get that. But he has not had anything legal to go after Barack Obama.
I think he knows what an uphill battle that would be. I think he's smart enough to know that going after Barack Obama is political suicide on both sides. I mean, it just would not work. So but it is odd because he doesn't seem to take a lot of rational thought into his decision-making process. So you would think, well, if I'm gonna go after this person, James Comey and everybody else, but he never actually had to run against Barack Obama.
This is true.
So by the time he was running for president, Barack Obama was already done. He hates Barack Obama because of a joke.
Yes.
But he doesn't have any basis because he knows, I think, in in the dark when he's alone there and his hair is talking to him and the paint is peeling off his face, he knows Barack Obama would wipe the floor with him in an election.
Yes. I mean, he would. I mean, because I think there's still enough people who love the Obamas.
And he never would have beat Barack Obama. He was a Democrat when Barack Obama was president.
He actually, this is a fact. He actually donated to Barack Obama's campaign. That's a fact.
So it's not a secret. But I think that's the reason why.
Yeah.
But it
is fascinating, right?
It is fascinating. It is fascinating. And on the surface, you're like, oh yeah, why? It
is interesting based on how this administration likes to go after those opponents. And then my mind also starts reeling, was his attack on Barack Obama essentially blowing up Obama's Iran treaty, right? Because he basically blew up what Barack Obama worked out and threw it away.
And he's blown up Obamacare.
Yes.
So that's
So instead of going the legal route, was that his way of attacking Barack Obama without having to take him into court and be embarrassed in that way?
It's a way to erase a legacy without having to go to court. And that's what he's trying to do. And he unfortunately, he won't be able to achieve that because Barack Obama's legacy is more than just those two things.
Of course.
But for him to say, yes, I'm going to do it better and then get us less than we had already in Iran and never
having a plan.
Never having anything for healthcare.
Yeah.
Other than a concept of a plan, which we are never going to see.
And by the way, for anybody wondering about Joe Biden, little refresher here for just a moment. In late 2022, early 2023, those classified documents were found at Biden's home. And then in January of 2023, Robert Hur, remember that guy? He was a special counsel who was selected by Attorney General Merrick Garland to investigate whether Joe Biden had mishandled those sensitive documents. In February of 2024, after a year, Hur released a 345-page report in which he determined that although, quote, Biden willfully retained and disclosed classified materials after his vice presidency when he was a private citizen, which he gave back immediately once he did. Anyway, I digress. There was not enough evidence to bring criminal charges against him. Now, Hur's team interviewed 147 people as part of that investigation, including Joe Biden himself. And following that ruling, during Biden's remaining tenure in the White House, the Justice Department refused requests from Republican lawmakers to release audio from Biden's interview with her. And then, obviously, those snippets, is if you remember how history played out, those snippets were obtained and then published by Axios in May of 2025. The point to all of this is, just for that little timeline, it was investigated. It was found that there was nothing was wrong in those movements.
There was such a huge difference because he was very forthcoming, and he said, these, all right, here, take them back. I'm not hiding them. They're right here. But they were in his garage near his Corvette, just stored in his garage.
Not in the bathroom.
All right. Has your pet ever done anything unusual? Do you fear your pet?
Yeah.
Fairly solid and better than expected. It's Daybreak with Brian and Jamie.
It's 8:52 right now. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We do appreciate it. Hopefully you're having a great Wednesday. I am Jamie Martinson.
And good morning, I'm Brian Noonan. Has your pet done anything very unusual? I'm not talking usual pet stuff, but very unusual. Now, it's common knowledge on this show. Jamie and I both love dogs. Mm-hmm. I love my dogs. I believe my dogs are fond of me. But I also believe that if I were ever to die, the dogs would eat me without any hesitation.
Of course. They are still animals.
Yes. I don't think they would be proactive in my downfall, though.
No.
They would. I don't think they want me gone, but if they were, unlike a dog that was in Nebraska, because police responded to reports of a shotgun blast at a convenience store. It sounds like the opening of a lot of crime movies. No, the cops got to this convenience store. They found a dog had shot its owner. That's right. Watch out for your pets, especially if they're armed. Local TV station KNOP News 2 reported that police in the town of Scotts Bluff, Nebraska, were called out to a local store after reports of a blast involving a shotgun. They found a truck with blast damage in one of its doors and a woman who had been struck in the arm by a pellet from a shotgun. So what have we learned? Dogs are vicious and they're not good shots. 2 takeaways so far from this story.
That's right.
Yes. The investigation showed a canine caused behind the shooting when it revealed the blast happened as the vehicle had pulled up to the store and the dog had been moving from one side of the back seat to another. Now, somehow, I know how, years of planning, this dog had been waiting for this moment. There's no doubt about it. This dog had been watching and waiting, and every time it was withheld a treat, it chalked it up in its ledger of wrongs that had been done to it. The dog triggered the shotgun, which had a live round chambered. Of course it did. This dog was not just risking it.
Of course.
Shot the woman. The victim was taken to the hospital.
Wow.
Or no, this was struck a passerby. It was just a random drive-by.
Wow.
This dog didn't even shoot its owner. It shot just a citizen. So it's illegal in Nebraska to drive with a loaded shotgun and a homicidal dog in your car. Those are the two. Nebraska's strange. I don't know. A lot of corn out there.
No, here's the thing. I actually know News 2, believe it or not, because of storm chasing. And I actually know Scotts Bluff, Nebraska very well because long ago as a young child, my family had a construction company. We built a couple of motels in Scotts Bluff, Nebraska. So I've actually spent plenty of time in Scotts Bluff. Your assessment of Nebraska, it's a lovely state. It really, truly is.
It's very flat.
I love the sand dune area.
I've been all over.
I love the sand dunes. I love Omaha.
Where are the sand dunes in Nebraska?
Oh, it's on the western part of the state. They're actually quite lovely. And it's kind of a cool area. But I really do love parts of Nebraska. This story doesn't actually surprise me. However, I do have questions.
Really?
I do have questions. Because, first of all, why do you have a shotgun just laying on the seat of your car? Like,
because it's Nebraska.
What are we doing?
I think they're road hunting for pheasant, Jamie. Don't listen.
It might be.
Come from a long line of loaded guns in the car.
This is true. Tyler from Wisconsin Rapids also has questions. He's texting this morning. He says, one single pellet. Sounds familiar. Cindy from Appleton, did they arrest the dog? How big is this dog that would have tripped the trigger like that to shoot? Is this like a Great Dane going back and forth in the car?
I don't know.
Because I don't know
I don't
if a
think
Yorkie's
it's the
gonna
size
do
of the dog with the gun. It's the size of the gun with the dog.
Yeah, perhaps. I have questions.
It could be a wily little dog. I've seen little dogs that think they're big.
Oh, this is true.
Probably
Napoleon complex.
Yeah,
That's what little
this
dogs
dog doesn't care.
I'm trying to track down to see if I can figure out what kind of dog this was. I'm not doing so great, though, this morning. Nobody's telling me what kind of dog it was.
It was four-legged, the barky kind.
It had to be a little dog.
The evil kind
so?
of dog.
Yeah.
Well, because the little dogs can actually be the most vicious. Big dogs just want your love and attention. They're like, yes, please, please, please. Little dogs, on the other hand, are kind of like Napoleon complex. I don't actually need you. Right? Like that's how I feel about little dogs. They don't
All
actually
I need is this shotgun and I'm going to get
That's
whatever
right.
I want.
That's right. That's right. That's how I
said more treats. I want that chicken finger.
Not to mention
Let's
the
go.
fact that little dogs are sometimes a little bit more spoiled and they're a little bit more divish, right? So if they didn't get the treat that they wanted at one point, they've held that grudge because you made them choose something that was harder than they would have anticipated. I can see that with little dogs. I've had those.
I'm always concerned, going back to your first question, I don't have firearms, but I'm guessing I'm not just going to toss it in the back seat like I do my sweatshirt if I'm hot.
Right.
It's just like, and then I throw my dog on top of it, and I have a gasoline can with just a rag instead of a cap, and I have I just toss my lit matches back there after I light my smokes. What are you driving? Some suicide machine? What's happening over there?
I feel like there needs to be some sort of protocol or law about how you do these things in Nebraska if there isn't already a law about these things.
There is. There's a law. You can't drive with a loaded shotgun in your vehicle. But this guy or woman, I don't know, maybe the poor woman who shot, she's supposedly okay with one,
well, that's good.
Just one pellet. So again, the dog needs to go to the range,
Yes.
Out of all its planning,
Yes.
it left one thing up to chance. Its
Yes.
aim.
Well, though, here's the thing: dogs don't actually see like humans do. The researchers have studied that. Like, I'm getting deep and analytical on this.
Are you saying they needed a scope?
It may
It
be.
just couldn't freewheel?
I mean, we know
Just
that they
couldn't start
can't
blasting?
see color too. Dogs only see the world in black and white, so that might have had something to do with it. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's an old dog. Maybe its eyesight
Maybe he
isn't
saw-
as good as what it used to
Got
be.
cataracts? Could be.
Right.
Maybe he saw a flash of color for the first time and just shot at it because it was so startling.
Dogs,
Like,
I mean, dogs
saw a
will
red
sit,
hat and
dogs
just blasted
will sit
at
and
it.
stare into space at nothing at all. So who knows what it actually saw?
You know what they're thinking? How can I get a gun
Right.
and get what I want? That's what
right.
when they stare off into space. Now every time I see my dog staring, I'm like, I don't have a gun in the house. And I can take you.
See, your
Hand to
wife,
hand. I'm going to call Parker over, and he's going to bare hand hunt you.
your wife thinks that they're looking for ghosts. That's not. They're
Yeah,
plotting
no.
her demise.
She's looking to make her a ghost.
That's right.
That's it. All right. Well, on that happy note, keep one eye on your pet and one eye on whatever else you're doing because they're thinking. We will talk to you again tomorrow. Thanks for listening. I'm Brian Noonan.
I'm Jamie Martinson. We hope you have a wonderful Wednesday. You are listening to the Civic Media Network.